noise!
Welcome back to the next part of this Truth and Rhythm episode. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. Also become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you so much for your interest and support. Enjoy.
Let me ask you, Charles, about a couple of these other names. Teena Marie.
Okay, so Teena Marie, Benjamin Rait. Teena Marie was doing a commercial. Benjamin Rait had written out a chart, right? So Teena's guitarist couldn't read. So she brought him to the studio because, she says, well, you can have this guy named Charles Julian Fearing play. I've seen his name on some records and I know he's done all the DeBarge stuff, but my guy's probably funkier than him. So, of course, when I heard that, I'm like, okay, so we're at Larrabee, right? And so her bassist at the time, Alan McGreer, he said, Teena, this dude is really, really funky. So after I played this guitar line for this commercial, and then she was doing something for a TV show, right? And Ben did that too. That's when she called me and she realized that she says, so I heard that if you don't have a chart, you can write the chart out and you'll just hear the music and you'll play it. I said, yeah. So again, now we're at Stevie Wonder studio, and the record was called Fix It. And I forget the other one, and she was a genius, dude, because as a producer, she knew exactly what she wanted. But also, if you were bringing something valuable to the party, not trying to overplay, but make the overall record better, she would listen from a, well, you know what, this might make it better standpoint. She wasn't locked into the ego while I'm producing. It was about being better, and, she was discovered by Lee Young Sr. because she was a writer at Motown. She was down in the basement at Mo West, and Lee Young Sr., told Barry Gordy, man, we need to record her, bro. So that's how she got on, was, from Lee going down there, listening to her sing and come up with these songs for other Motown artists, saying, look, you need to be recording this stuff yourself. So it's just right moment, right time. It's like with Dionne Warwick. I see her all the time and I thank her, for being on the session, that led to writing with Barry Manilow. And Dionne says, Charles, you were just in the right place at the right time and God was with you. Wow. This is freaking Dionne Warwick, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, you have to be as well prepared as possible and open, from what you're telling me, everything you're telling me, you were open to what these people were willing to impart on you.
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, it's like when we were doing Kenny Rogers, right? So it's Clarence McDonald, God rest his soul, Clarence McDonald, James, all the James Taylor stuff. And by the way, once I hooked up with Clarence, we started getting together. He's like, hey, man, I'm going to show you how to voice the chords like how I showed James. So now I'm getting this other lesson. And we're on this Kenny. So I'll go back to Kenny Rogers. So Kenny Rogers and Gene Page is the arranger, and it's probably 7, 8 people on the session, but 7 of the 8 people are all black, right? And it's one white guy, right? He's playing banjo. So Kenny makes a comment. He says, man, how come all of you black guys know how to play country music? You know what I'm saying? And so nobody says anything. And I raised my hand. I said, well, Kenny, I was raised in the Church of God in Christ. And I said, to me, country music is just, some of it is just watered down gospel music. And I said, some of those Southern Baptists down in the South, that's just quartet singing. And I said, if you listen to the root of where that music is, that's that country beat. You know what I'm saying? Like with praise and worship, when the Church of God in Christ goes double time, that's like that honky tonk thing. And and I remember him looking up, like, what, you're right. And that goes to show you that if you love the music, it's just music. Because if you listen to the stuff that the Muscle Shoals guy played, which was a mixed session, now they're down in the deep South in the 60s, cutting these hits. So they could be together in the studio, but they couldn't be seen going to the same restaurant or eating together like that or hanging. Listen to that music.
Such a hypocrisy.
Well, no, I understand that, Scott, but what I'm saying,
the commonality
is the commonality. It wasn't black or white. It was just, hey man, we got to do this. Another one of my big sessions, right? So Ed Green, the drummer, Ed Green, right? Okay. So, Ed Green played on all of Barry White stuff and a bunch of other stuff. And, Ed Green. So my first big session, I think it was Donna Summer or something like that. I'm going to meet Ed Green. So I'm like, oh man. So I know in my mind, Ed Green is like a black guy. He's got to be a black guy, right? Okay, so I get to the session. This white dude with long hair is putting up the cymbals, and he rolled 3 joints and put them on the tom-tom, right? He had 2 toms, and one of the tom-toms, he rolled 3 joints, he lined them up. Like, man, so Ed Green's got this dude rolling joints for him, man. This is like incredible, right? So session started at 10 o'clock. It's 9:50. Everybody was there. So I'm thinking, well, it's Ed Green. He's probably going to come in at the last minute like Superman. And, he's freaking Ed Green. So Gene Page is introducing me to the guys. And he's like, oh, we've got this young, wonderful guitarist, and he's multi-talented. And when he gets to Ed Green, I said, Ed, I got to talk to you on the lunch break, dude, or like when we have a break. So I said, Ed, I thought you were black, bro. All those records you have done, and again, that showed me, again, it doesn't matter. When it gets to that level, if you're into it, you're into it.
Well, even Teena Marie we were just talking about, and she didn't have her picture on the first album because they were concerned about that.
Of course.
And everyone thought she was black at first.
Of course. But see, fortunately now, we've gotten past that to a certain extent, because if you're a lover of music, it's like if you look at John Baptiste, who can literally do anything, what I'm saying? He's Juilliard, Terrence Blanchard, and I had the pleasure of working with Terrence on One Night in Miami. If you watch that movie, the first musician credit is me, so that, that feels good. But working with people of that caliber is unbelievable because you don't even think about their color. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just, okay, and like when Billie Jean came out, right? They had given the guitar credit to Dean Parks, who had also played on Billie Jean. Dean Parks didn't play that part. David Williams, God rest his soul, played the part. So Dean Parks took out a 2-page ad in Billboard magazine, letting people know that Billie Jean part that everybody was going crazy over, it wasn't him, it was David Williams. That's incredible because Dean Parks is secure. Dean Parks is still doing his thing. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, wow, I mean, they corrected the credits on the next run, but Dean takes it upon himself because Billie Jean was such a hit. Those are the kind of people that I like that are not insecure. And if something is wrong, you step up and you say what it is. You know what I'm saying? Because I've had that happen to me a couple of times. You know what I'm saying? I remember, doing All This Love for DeBarge, right? Okay, so this was the first record that Benjamin Rait knew I wanted to, do some arranging. So I had done DeBarge's first record, but this is their second record. So I meet El DeBarge at, and like I said, I already knew him, but this is a whole different thing from being called to be on the session. And he sits down and he plays me the song All This Love. And I'm like, dude, that's one of the greatest love songs I've heard, because what I said, the lyric, well, a man is telling a woman that he'll wait for her. You go, usually it's the other way around. Oh, you go out and, sow your wild oats. So when we're talking about production of the song, I tell him, I say, hey, El, I'm only going to put acoustic guitar, finger picking, and then I'm going to do a guitar solo in the third verse. I said, I'm going to break it up with acoustic and classical guitar. Okay, so we do the record, and Iris Gordy, who was A&R on the project, she hears the solo, and she tells me, she says, well, you're not playing fast enough. And so I said, Iris, look, I believe if Ernie Isley or George Benson walked in here, that they would play something similar, because remember, the man is saying, all this love is waiting for you. So then she turns around and tells me, well, that's okay, because we just hired Jose Feliciano, and I'm going to have Jose come in, and I'm going to have Jose play this solo and so on. I said, look, I don't care who you call. Okay, fast forward. They're mixing the record up in Dawn and Motown. I get this call at what I call no o'clock in the morning, like 3 o'clock. And I answer the phone. Mr. Fearing, that guitar solo is freaking incredible. I'm like, who is this? It's Barry, baby. It's Barry, baby. It's Barry. So then Benjamin Rait gets on the phone, and he calls me by my middle name. He says, Julian, you out Jose. I'm like, what are you talking about, Dad? Because I call Ben Dad. He says, well, we're up here mixing All This Love. It's Elle, Bonnie Perkins, myself, and Barry Gordy. And when it got to the solo, Barry Gordy says, we're going to have to redo the solo. And then Bonnie Perkins says, well, Charles Julian has a solo on tracks 1 and 2. So what you hear was the original solo that I did. So every time I see Iris Gordy, I always rib her, about, okay, so you called Jose, and I out Jose, And again, it's not that Jose can't play, because obviously he can play and he can definitely sing. But just for that record, whatever he played, and I never heard what he played, you know what I'm saying? But for that record, I just played the right thing, you know what I'm saying? But also, I was really listening to the lyric, and I don't know what the situation was when he played it, And like I said, I never heard it. But sometimes, some things are just better than other things. It's
Yeah.
like the solo, it's like the solo on Peg. Larry Carlton was so upset that he could not play that solo because if you listen, they're changing chords and changing keys. That Larry Carlton asked for the chart so he can go home and practice to learn how to play through those chord changes. And this is freaking Larry Carlton. This is not some guy that can't play. Skunk Baxter played too. You know what I'm saying? But Jay Graydon, has this other thing, and he just heard it differently and played it. You know what I'm saying?
That's just like certain bands have the chemistry together,
Come on.
but then when you take them apart,
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I'm very respectful of all of that. It's like my young son, he got into Queen, right? He really got into Queen after Bohemian Rhapsody. And he realizes, wow, Queen is different from other rock bands. And then he realizes not only can Freddie Mercury sing, but Freddie Mercury has a classical background. He's studying classical piano. And just how that music is treated, like after he heard Journey and he hears Steve Perry's vocals, he was like, Dad, that guy can sing. You know what I'm saying? Like he's listening to We Are the World, and he would always go to Steve Perry's part because the way Steve sings, his vocal cuts through. You know what I'm saying? And I said, son, these are the things that you need to listen for and listen to. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, I'm glad that I have been involved in those kind of moments. And speaking of Joe Cocker, okay, so Dionne Warwick, I'm sure you know who Dionne Warwick is, right? So Dionne Warwick calls me up and she says, hey, Charles, I don't want to offend you, but we're doing this demo on Joe Cocker. And actually, we're going to have Neil Schon from Journey play the guitar, so I need you to do, like a rock thing, rhythm guitar. And then, he's going to take the great big solo. So I'm like, hey, Dionne, Neil, man, Neil is freaking unbelievable. Okay, so I do the demo. And then I get a call. Hey, look, can you come down to the studio? And I had told Dionne I wanted to meet Neil. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to come down and meet Neil. She says, well, call your cartage and bring your stuff. And that sound that you played the rock rhythm on, Neil wants to meet you because he can't get how you played this rhythm. This is Neil. So I get to meet Neil, and his solo was freaking unbelievable, dude. I mean, come on, So I'm doing this rhythm, and he's watching me. And I told him, I said, well, I don't know if you're familiar with the Church of God in Christ, but I grew up in the church. And I said, I kind of like to add that kind of swing to it, and then towards the end of the record, he's doing this solo, and I just immediately start playing a third above him, because I heard it. And he's like, man, how did you know? I said, well, I heard the interval, I heard the intervals. And he was like, wow, and it was just a compliment to have this guy who is unbelievable at playing the guitar, and Journey is one of those groups, that had, you could tell that they were musicians. They didn't just play 1-4-5, and and I don't have anything against 1-4-5, but that band had some great material, and for him to want to check me out and want to stay there and see how I played this rhythm on this demo. So now I'm on the record playing rhythm guitar, rock rhythm guitar, and Neil Schon is taking the solo. You know what I'm saying? And then, I started soloing along with him when I knew that, this was like after 4+ minutes, I knew that they weren't going to use anything. So I just started, and just the process of him telling me, that was a compliment, man. That's a compliment, because again,
Can't beat that, yeah.
This is Neil, bro. This is freaking Neil.
What are one or two of your most unforgettable performance memories?
Okay. So Tina Turner, Private Dancing. Okay. I'm in the Crusaders now. They let me know that, hey man, we're doing Tina Turner. We're doing this song, Private Dancer. Tina shows up to the studio, dude. The legs are better than advertised. Okay, I'm telling you, it's freaking unbelievable. So as we're running down the song, she comes in the studio and she looks at me and she says, "You have no idea what that guitar part is doing to me right now." And I look at Joe Sample, I look at Indugu, and I look at Wilton Felder, and the look that they gave me was just a look of joy, because this is Tina Turner, bro. This is freaking Tina Turner, right? That was one, that moment was incredible. Then another moment was when Michael Jackson did the halftime for the Super Bowl, right? So he calls me, "Hey Charles, I'm down at Larry B. North." I said, "Michael, please talk in your regular." "Okay, hey Charles, so I'm down at Larry B. North, and and see, I had just done some rock stuff for he and Quincy." He says, "Like, I need you to come down here because Jennifer Batten is out of town, and we're recording, you know, the Super Bowl halftime, the pre-record stuff." Okay, so come down to Larrabee. So I call Cartage, and I've got a double guitar case on my back, and the executive producer says, "Oh, great, the guitar player stuff is here." I said, "Oh, well, I'm not just a guitar player, I'm a guitarist." He says, "Oh, well, all the funk stuff is down the hall." I said, "No, I'm Charles Julian Fearing. Michael called me, and I'm here." So Michael's engineer tells the executive, but he says, "Look, man, this guy's probably the most versatile guy. I mean, he can play anything, bro. So I said, "Dude, I'm gonna do this stuff in one take, because I had heard Beat It, and it was in the same key, and I have a guitar. Matter of fact, my Charvel Strat is tuned to E flat, right? So I played the rock cues, black and white. I play, um, um, the solo thing on Beat It, and I forget what the other song was. So now he wants to be my best friend. So now I have to give him education." I said, "So now the distorted guitar sound started in the black church," because I said, the black churches couldn't afford the Hammond big B3 organs like the big white churches. So you had slide guitars and guitars. So as the choir got bigger, they started turning the volume up. And they discovered the closer they got to the amp, that they could hold that note just as long and get overtones, this distorted thing, right? And then I reminded him of Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I'm bringing him up to B.B. King. And then I said, "Look, man, there's a guy that everybody's still chasing. He died in 1971, Jimi Hendrix." Come on, everybody's still chasing Hendrix. And it's amazing because he hadn't thought about it that way. And then he also played guitar. So he's like, "Look, can we get together and go shopping? I'm gonna get everything that you get." I said, "Look, having the equipment is one thing, but having this, that's a whole nother thing." You see what I'm saying? And that was a great session for me because Michael personally called me, but also, the executive producer, ABC, got to see you know, what music is really about. There's no color to it. It's just if you're into it, you can get to it. You see what I'm saying? And if you want to get into it, get around some people that are into it. That's it. It's not black or it's not white. It's just, hey man, let's go. You see what I'm saying? What are you bringing to the party? What are you bringing to the party? You know what I'm saying? Like Sly and the Family Stone were the first integrated band. The Doobie Brothers. When you hear these groups that have great music, great singers, great contributions, that were quote unquote going through a door that people hadn't gone through. Because Louis Armstrong, the only time he could play with white musicians were after they finished their gigs and they had a jam session. And one of the reasons why Louis Armstrong is not buried in New Orleans in his hometown, because he tried to put together the first integrated band to play. And they told him he couldn't go do that. That's why he's buried in Brooklyn, dude. Because and all they wanted to do was play music. They didn't want to date white girls or anything like that. They wanted to play music together. When you think about that, you think, wow, but that was a serious issue back then. Oh, yeah. So now my thing is just the feel. How does it make you feel? If you want to learn how to do that, get into the feel and leave yourself open. Don't think white, black, blue, brown. Just get into what that feeling means to you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Charles, when you look back on all these amazing accomplishments you've done musically and all these things you've taken in, these life lessons, what are you most proud of accomplishing in your music career?
Okay, I'll have to say Barry Manilow, because that took my writing to another level. And he calls me one day, and I'm like, "Who is this?" It's Barry. I'm like, "Barry? I'm Barry." "Oh, Manilow. If you don't have a session, can you come to my house and let's write some songs together?" Right. So I go up to his estate. And he was the one that really taught me music publishing, licensing, all of this stuff, which I knew about, but I didn't. So he says, write this down because you're not going to remember it. Then he tells me, musically, I remind him of himself when he was Bette Midler's arranger. So we find out that we both love Burt Bacharach. We love Tom Bell. Okay, so at that time, my father was having heart issues and triple bypass and a whole bit. So I come in one day and he says, "Is your dad okay?" I said, "No, man, something bad happened last night." I said, "Felipe Soul Win of the Spinners, he died on stage." Now, we love the Spinners, right? And we love Felipe. So we're both sitting there crying up at his house. Then he picks up the phone, calls his office, and tells whoever there at the office, "Hey, look, Charles and I are here writing. He's going to be here till about 5 or 6 o'clock. Make sure you find out Felipe Soul Win's wife, because he has kids, and he put out an amount of money to send to this woman." Now, we both didn't know Felipe Win. We just appreciated his gift, because when I worked with the Spinners, it was the other guy who sang Cupid. Right. And he didn't want any credit. Then he tells the office, make sure that she doesn't have the tax liability to pay on the money. And I was like, wow, ain't this about something else? He didn't want any credit. This was a conversation that I saw. Then he breaks out his accordion and says, "Man, my grandfather back in New York, he would book me gigs. I was playing at bar mitzvahs and this, that, and the other, and so and so. He was like my manager." You know what I'm saying? And so Barry Manilow takes out his accordion and starts sounding like Myron Florence from Lawrence Welk Show. You know what I'm saying? This is a great moment for me because he's letting me know that he says, well, you do jingles too, right? I was like, yeah. He says, well, I wrote the thing for McDonald's and American Bandstand, and you can take Salem out of the country, but you can, he's like telling me all this stuff. And he says, okay, so I know you're getting to write jingles, but what you got to do, you got to sing on them too. Because see, you want to make sure that you get the maximum amount of pay that you can get. Because when you sing, that's another thing. But when you sing lead or background, it's a whole nother thing. You know what I'm saying? So I'm getting this whole other education. You know what I'm saying?
And he mentored you.
Oh, come on. That's how I learned the publishing. Like he tells me, he says, look, I know you write lyrics, but I'm going to get Adrian Anderson. She wrote Mandy and this, that, and the other, and we're going to split the song 3 ways. And, you're going to get your publishing. And, so you and Adrian are going to get 33.33. And because I'm Barry Manilow, I'm going to get 33.34 because it has to, and I'm just getting this lesson from this guy that has had that's been more than successful. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And that's how I met Bob Gaudio, because what happened, they had his name was Howie. He used to be on Room 222, but he was one of Richard Perry's young producers. He produced the song first, right? So then Bob Gaudio, who wrote all the songs for Frank Valli and the Four Seasons, produced all the Neil Diamond stuff. When Barry gets with him, Barry plays him the original demo on cassette of Barry playing the piano, me playing guitar, and Barry and I both singing the song. So he asked Barry, who is that playing the guitar? He says, oh, that's the kid that co-wrote the song. So then Barry calls me, he says, I need you to get down to this studio, which I had always seen this studio. I just didn't know whose studio it was, right? So that's how I got to meet Bob Gaudio. And then he gives me a whole nother lesson, in writing. And he says, yeah, I might have been and the Four Seasons. He said, but I wrote all the songs and I own all the publishing. Oh, okay. So now I understand that conversation because Barry Manilow has already hit me to what that is, and he says, well, one of the reasons why I want to do Barry Manilow, because he says, I could do a Neil Diamond record in my sleep. I want the challenge of doing something different. Wow. I mean, now to say that is one thing, but to say it and mean it is a whole nother thing. And then he just starts giving me this advice, and this guy's been in the game, probably before I was born, you know what I'm saying? And he's just freely giving me this advice. And then says, hey man, you just come hang out with me. You know what I'm saying? And bring your guitar, bring your guitar, bring your acoustic guitar. And let's just, if we play, we play. But he said, but if not, what I'm going to give you, you can use. Like, damn, really? So now I'm hanging out with Bob Gaudio. You know what I'm saying? And he would play me stuff and show it. He says, and when you're writing a song, he said, always show your song. He says, your guitarist. He said, with the vocal and the guitar, or the piano and the vocal. He said, because that's how people want to hear the song. Then you can hear the song. They don't need to hear all this big track and strings and your ideas. He said, that's production. He said, always the song is king. It's like in Nashville. In Nashville, the song is king. You could have the greatest track in the world, but if you don't have a story and a great vocal, that doesn't work in Nashville. That doesn't work in Nashville, bro.
Yeah, the songs are what endures.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've had great mentors across the board who knew that I really wanted it. I wanted the right way. And I would just be in situations where they would say, hey, man, well, come here. Hey, come hang out. Hey, Bob told me because Bob's studio was catty corner to the Total Experience, right? And it was this glass building. I knew it was a studio, but I just had never worked there. To find out that Bob Gaudio's studio, he says, so next time you have the Total Experience recording, man, just come on over. He says, I'm always there. He said, when you see my car, don't even call, just, come on over. Wow, really? So that's how the relationship started. And then, I could ask him anything and he would give me advice. And, and again, this is all from writing with Barry Manilow and, Bob hearing the guitar on a cassette demo of Barry playing the piano, me playing electric guitar, and Bob's like, well, who's that playing the guitar? Because that's what we need, that feel right there. That feel, that's what we need on this record. You know what I'm saying? So, you just never know what situation you're going to be in, and just be open and be ready.
Absolutely.
Because the universe has got your back if you have your own back and you're honest. You see what I'm saying? And that's what I'm teaching my son, is that you always want to be honest and don't think you know everything.
Oh, no, always be a student, always be learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm willing to learn something, and I don't think I know everything. I really don't. You know?
You've certainly imparted a lot of knowledge in this time we've been together, and I really appreciate it, and the viewers are going to really appreciate it. But I want to make sure.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I want to make sure you mentioned new music at the outset, but I want to make sure that anything else you have going on, that people are aware of that and how they can keep up with you and all that good stuff.
Well, I'm on Facebook, Charles Julian Fearing and C. Julian Fearing on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, but I don't really go to Instagram. Like, my son hooked me up, but the only reason why I used Instagram for the first time, because it was Johnny Gill's birthday and I wanted to send him my rendition of Happy Birthday solo jazz guitar. So, my son has to remind me to go to Instagram, because he'll say, Dad, you got all these messages and people want to follow you. And, and the new music that I'm doing, I'm working with a couple of big artists that I can't talk about, and this super group I can't talk about either. But you know what, Scott, I'm gonna keep you in the loop. I'll send you pictures of Dionne Warwick and us, and I'll send you when my son first met Dionne, and then she had a concert that we just went to in Beverly Hills at the Saban, and when she saw Alex is 6'2", 6'3", she said, well, he's certainly not little Alex anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the great thing is that we're going to go to Dionne's house and hang out. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to bring my guitar and he plays piano and, and
some back rack tunes.
Yeah. But I mean, so, like he told me, he says, Dad, I get to meet some really cool people. And like he told this, we did an interview last week and he told the lady, he says, yeah, so like the phone will ring and my dad asked me to answer the phone and it'll be Lou Adler and it'll be Quincy Jones and and my dad is just talking to them regular, or it'll be Stevie and it's just a great thing for him to realize. And I told him, I said, look, I want you to do better than me, bro, so whatever I can do, but I said your job is to be a good person, be a good student, and keep practicing your craft. You know what I'm saying? And you'll be able to get there, because he's very talented. He's very, very talented. And, but I told him, you have to be honest. And if you make a misstep and it's wrong, don't make the same misstep again. You know what I'm saying?
And be accountable. Yeah.
Right. And be accountable, remain accountable. And, so, I'm just teaching him the way that I was taught. And now he gets it, because when I hear him talking about me, like in the interview, I'm like, okay, so this stuff is rubbing off on him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's cool.
And it felt good to hear him, and a couple of times I teared up because he's just telling what he experienced. You know what I'm saying? It's like he and my wife, his mother, they had never heard me play rock guitar, right? So they're like, oh, you can't play rock guitar, because around the house, I'm practicing acoustic, classical guitar, playing the balalaika. But that's from George Benson. When I met George Benson playing with Barry White, he said, man, don't ever practice on electric guitar. He said, you practice on acoustic or classical guitar, and then all that stuff you're doing, if you could do it on there, when you get to electric guitar, it'll be like butter, baby. It'll be like butter. Okay. So fast forward, I get called to be a musician and a singer for Shout Sister Shout about Sister Rosetta Tharpe. So I feel blessed because the music director and the executive producer and the producer, they're like, so who can we get who's very versatile, but who could sing, but also, and my name kept coming up. Okay. So, Gibson is supplying all the guitars. So I'm playing, Sister Rosetta Tharpe played 9 different guitars throughout her career. So now I have all these custom shop guitars, and one of the guitars was a Guild. So I'm like, well, we got to get a Guild. They're like, no, you don't, because she played the guitar that Chet Atkins played, and when Chet Atkins went from Guild, he came to Gibson, and we have the same guitar. So now I'm playing all these incredible custom shop guitars. So in the show, there was a couple of cues where, it's a rock thing, right? Okay, so Vox is doing the amps and the pedals, right? Because we can't figure out, and I'm doing my research, we couldn't figure out what amp she played before she did that video on the train, and it was a Vox amp. So, okay, so we've got Gibson and Vox guitars. So there's this crunch pedal that I didn't know how to use. And so I said, hey, look, man, I kind of want a Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Muddy Waters Hendrix sound. That's what, so if you can get that and I can store it, and I hit the pedal, I have that sound. So I get to the Pasadena Playhouse early, and the guy says, hey, man, I got the sound, man. Go up and play. So I grabbed, the SG and a Les Paul, and I'm just up there going crazy. I'm playing Hendrix, The Wind Cries Mary, and, just all this stuff, and I'm starting to soloing. Then the producer says, okay, hold on. So this is what we're going to do. At the end of the show, after we do the last 2 choruses, I want you to go crazy. I'm like, really? Okay, so of course, I invite my son, my wife and my son. So they don't know that at the end of the show, after 2 choruses of I forget the gospel song we were playing, that I'm going to go crazy. And they're going to put the spotlight on me, and I step out the whole bit. And the look on my son's face and the look on my wife's face. And then he said, Dad, everybody in the audience was like, oh my God, so you can play rock and roll. It sounded, so it was like that was like, another great moment.
Like Steve Vai in Crossroads. Do you remember that?
Yeah, right. Yes. It was like that. So, and he talked about that in the interview. That's why it's so fresh, but it's, hey man, I'm having the time of my life. I'm having the time of my life. Raydio just got inducted into the R&B Hall of Fame. And
yeah, congratulations on that too.
Thank you, man. That was September 24th, and went back to Detroit. And, I hadn't played that music in so long, and it felt good to be in rehearsal. And for Arnell and Darren Carmichael to say, man, there's that voice, there's that guitar. You know what I'm saying? So it felt good to and we closed the show. We played 4 songs. Those Who Like to Groove. We closed with You Can't Change That. Jack and Jill, of course, and A Woman Needs Love. So it was cool to play those songs again and to sing them, and and for us to be received and that way, and my family was there and all my other children. It was great, Scott. It was great. Of course I start crying. Of course I start crying. But it was good though.
Arnell's really helped keep that legacy alive over the years.
Yeah. So they're doing their thing and I'm doing my thing, and everybody's happy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
well, now I'm happy too. So thank you for that.
Good, man.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. You mentioned Larry Graham, right? So that bass style that he came up with was because the drummer in the church band that he and his grandmother played in, the drummer couldn't be in the band anymore. So Larry figured out that system of keeping rhythm with the thumb and like a bass, drum, and snare kind of thing. Just think about that.
Making up for it.
Okay, so we don't have a drummer, we got to play, but somebody's got to keep the rhythm.
Innovative. Yeah.
Come on. You know what I'm saying? And I remember I was in the Crusaders, and we were doing Street Life, right? So Larry Graham grabbed the bass, and Street Life, every other chorus it changes keys, right? So Larry was having a little trouble hearing the key, and he turns around and says, "The key of E," and man, we go to the key of E, and he starts playing.
That's what.
And I remember Joe Sample just shaking his head in joy because it really got funky then. I mean, and Larry Graham is just doing what he does, and with that baritone voice and just being Larry Graham. You know what I'm saying? So that was a great moment to feel that funk, because I had never played with him. I've never recorded with him, but, Indugu on the drums, Wilton on tenor, Joe on piano, I'm on guitar, and I forget the other guitars. It wasn't David. It was this white guy who was an incredible lead guitarist, and unfortunately, he was a heroin addict though too. But oh my God, he could play. Oh my God, he could play. I don't remember his name, but he damn sure could play.
Was it Barry Finnerty?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. He's been on the show. He's cleaned up now, I guess. But
okay.
Yeah. He's still playing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good. Because he's a great player.
Yeah.
Great player. I mean, when we were rehearsing, I'm like, oh my God. And just the stuff not only can he play lead, but it's like the stuff that he hears. It's like, okay, he can play in between all this stuff that Joe Sample's playing and not sound like it's a train wreck. I'm sitting there playing the funk and doing all this stuff. I'm playing common tones and playing rhythm and but I was just impressed that and I know he had been working with the Crusaders long before I got there, but I was just impressed that he could come up with this stuff, because Joe Sample can play a lot of stuff, bro. I mean, and it's all working. Okay, so now all of the Jackson 5 records that were cut out here, that's Joe Sample and Wilton Felder playing bass.
Wilton, yeah. I mean, I wasn't so sure about Joe, but
no. Okay, so let me tell you what happened. And Joe told me this himself. So it was Joe Sample and Clarence McDonald playing piano, right? So one day, somehow the music didn't get there, from the copyist. So they've got a session full of musicians, and Joe Sample tells them, "Hey, look, if you go out there and play the piano or the songwriter, I'll write the chart out." They're like, "You can do that?" Joe's like, "Yeah." That's how Joe became an arranger at Motown. They always knew he could play piano. That's how he became an arranger. Because on a session that the music didn't show up from the copyist, Joe wrote the music out for everybody. Okay, so this is the bass part. Okay, so let me write that out. And here, go to the copy machine and copy it and give it to Wilton. Yeah.
Necessity, the mother of invention, just like the Larry Graham thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just never know what situation you're going to be in. Just be ready, man. The
Always
thing is,
you
got to leave yourself open and, I remember when I worked with Gene Page. Gene Page would always come over and tell me, "Hey, look, when we get to the vamp of the record, give me that hit record thing." Right? So on the playback, I realized that if I played another part, that, I'd get I'd be making like triple, quadruple scale, right? So I would always get in Gene's ear and I would sing him the part. He would say, oh, wait, hold on, baby. Let's roll it back. Let's let Charles go out there. He's going to do an overdub and we can record and listen at the same time, because what he's going to play is just going to be wonderful. It's going to be wonderful. And I just remember, and she would always say, man, give me that hit record thing. Give me that hit record thing. So I've been very, very fortunate. And, I remember at Capitol Records, I'm at Capitol Records working with Kurt Farquhar, and we're doing Sinbad's show. And this little guy walks in from Disney and he says, "Man, I really like the way your guitar sounds and the effects you're using. And man, but I've never heard of you." I'm like, look, in my ego, I'm like, dude, I'm like the king of records, bro. So then he tells me, he says, "Well, look, I would like you to come to my office because I want you to do some TV and film stuff." I'm like, dude, I'm a record guy. He says, "No, just come to my office, please." Because he said, "I love the way you play the parts, because you play the parts like you're playing on a record, but you can read. So if it's a 30-second cue, it sounds like a record." Okay, so I go to his office. This guy is vice president of motion picture and TV for Disney. Okay. The president is Cheryl Milton, who was at that time Danny Elfman's wife. And he says, "Okay, so the first project, you've heard of this guy named Mark Shaman?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." He says, "Look, we're doing this film called James and the Giant Peach. Not only do I want you to get with Mark and play on the sessions, but that feel that you have, that's the kind of feel that we need for this film on a couple of the source cues, which is like a song." So now, not only am I doing the session, but I'm also co-writing some stuff with Mark Shaman. So it's just amazing how, and I didn't know who this guy was. And he was booking all the sessions for Buena Vista, which was a non-union of Disney, for Touchtone and for Disney. And he had these white chalkboard thingies that he's booking all of these sessions. So that's how I got into Disney. You know what I'm saying? And, as a musician, and then writing, and then we did this thing called Pepper Ann with the keyboard player from the B-52s. He was just getting into writing music, for TV and film. And Reggie Wilson hooked me up with him. And so we did Pepper Ann together, and it was great, man. You know what I'm saying? All because of, like Dionne Warwick said, you're in the right place at the right time. And I always think about that. Think about that.
Who's your other favorite guitar player besides Hendrix?
Oh, okay. Of course, Wes Montgomery, Lorendo Almeida, Segovia. Lesser known people. This guy named Wayne Bennett. I met Wayne Bennett when I was with Barry White, so I was a teenager. So Wayne Bennett was the guy that played on all Bobby Blue Bland's stuff, right? So I had already heard of David T. Walker and this other guitarist that was older than me that played with Barry White. He says, well, actually, David T. Walker's style, he got it from Wayne Bennett. Somehow, yeah, right. So now when I go over and I meet Wayne Bennett sounds like David T. Walker on steroids. You know what I'm saying? So, and then of course, B.B. King. Actually, B.B. King and I, we're born on the same day, September 16th. And so is Earl Kluse. Earl Kluse born on September 16th.
Well, that's my wedding anniversary.
Oh, see. Oh, okay. So congratulations. So my first encounter with B.B. King, I played on this song called Slow and Easy. I played rhythm guitar, right? Okay, so this guy named Johnny Pate is producing. So B.B. King needed to rent my guitar because I had a 335. Of course, he had Lucille, a 355. And because he had a gig, or they shipped Lucille away. So they called me and they're like, hey, we want to rent your guitar. BB wants to use your guitar. Because I had already shown BB that I could imitate him and the whole bit and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, man, look, he can just use it, man. You don't have to pay me. You don't have to pay me. So BB says, son, look, we'd have to go to SIR or whoever else, has a guitar. I know what your guitar sounds like. And so now, and I still have the receipt. It was $75, right? Okay, so now I get another call for the same record. So I'm thinking at this point, oh, they probably want me to play some rhythm guitar, So, and this was before digital. So Johnny Pate says, okay, so this is what happened. The second engineer accidentally erased 6 bars of BB solo. So what I need you to do is finish the solo. I know you can already sound like him. So now I'm like, oh God, I gotta be BB King. He says, look, man, just do what you did when you were showing BB and I that you can play like BB King. So now after he calms me down, because I'm like, okay, I was like just kidding. I wasn't really being serious. I mean, I love BB King. So I got to finish this solo on this record and it sounded just like BB King. You know what I'm saying? So, it's, and then fast forward for the soundtrack to Into the Night, right? Okay, so Ira Newborn, who was a guitarist and also a great arranger, calls me for the session.
Is that a Scorsese movie?
No, that's a John Landis movie. That's a John Landis movie, right? Okay, so
it was Gabriel Byrne or Jeff Goldblum, or
it was Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do the theme song and we do the first video. The first video had James Gatson and guys from the session. So then we do a second video and BB said, John Landis likes your look and he wants you to be in the video. I didn't know at that point that Jeff Goldblum could really play the piano, right? Okay, so because Michelle Pfeiffer is also in the film, they're going to have her in the fake horn section, and we're doing Midnight Hour. So if you Google Midnight Hour BB King, we had to keep delaying the shoot of the video because they're like, well, Eddie Murphy called and he said he could play drums. So now the horn section is Michelle Pfeiffer, Steve Martin, Danny DeVito, Dan Aykroyd, BB singing, playing the guitar. I'm playing guitar. Jeff Goldblum is playing the piano. And we did it at the place that was on Cahuenga and Santa Monica. Remember those Starwood? It was
Oh yeah, I was there many
Yeah,
times. I actually saw Parliament Funkadelic there one night. Incredible
that's
show.
where we shot. That's where we shot the video, right?
Santa Monica Boulevard, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So now I'm hanging out with BB. He says, "No, hey, look, you can just come to my trailer and just hang out. We're born on the same day. You know, um, you know." He said, same day, 40, 50 years apart, but it don't matter. So now I'm getting to hang out with BB King, and I had always listened to that song, "Why I Sing the Blues." And I knew the lyrics, but then he's telling me, he says, "Have you ever really listened to the lyrics?" I'm like, "Well, I can sing the song for you right now." He says, "No, have you listened to it?" So now I'm listening to the lyrics. That's a deep song because, he says, "When I first got the blues, they brought me here on a ship, men standing over me with chains and a whip. Everybody wants to know why I sing the blues." Then the second line is, "I laid in the ghetto flats, cold and numb. I heard the rats tell the roaches to save the bed bugs some." Everybody, and I could sing him the lyrics. I'm like, damn. Then I realized that he co-wrote the song. You know what I'm saying? So that's when he said, "You got to listen to my stuff again because there's messages in my songs."
Mm.
And that's when I start listening, to not just the feel of the song, but what he was saying. So man, this has been great, Scott. This has been great.
Yeah, it's been great getting to know you.
Thank you so much,
Stay in
Scott, for
touch.
having me. I really appreciate it, man.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Truth in Rhythm. A big thank you goes out to our guest as well as to you, the viewer and listener. Also, much gratitude to Pleasure for supplying the show's funky opening and closing music. As a reminder, you can always access the complete list of linked shows by episode at funkandstuff.net. I urge you to support this program and receive the extra benefits along with that by subscribing to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube and sharing it with funk, R&B, and jazz lovers, joining Truth and Rhythm's membership program at Patreon, submitting a donation at funkandstuff.net, buying Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk book at Amazon, shopping at the Funky Things store for cool merchandise at funkandstuff.net, and linking through funkandstuff.net for all of your Amazon purchases. In addition, if you're an artist or anyone seeking proven, results-oriented professional marketing, PR, writing, or editing consultation or production, check out the media services section at funkandstuff.net. Also, I encourage you to drop me a line at scottg@funkandstuff.net. I love the feedback, suggestions, guest requests, appearance and sponsorship inquiries, and just talking about my favorite subject, groove-based music. For now, and as always, this is Scott Dr. GX Goldfine saying, keep on vibing to the rhythm of the one.